Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I am Violette Ayala, the founder of FemCity. And today our conversation is going to go in accordance to our theme for the month of February. We're talking about self-love in the month of February. And I know a lot of our femmes were kind of wondering why we're doing self-love and what does self-love have to do with it? What does it have to do with revenue and business growth, which is, of course, what we're obsessed about. We want all of our members to thrive, not only financially, but also in all ways in personal development. So today I've asked two of our FemCity global experts to join us in the conversation. We're going to talk about the connection between loving yourself and generating more revenue. Our collective intention is that after we are done chatting, you're going to see the connection and perhaps fine tune a little bit more your self-love so that you can see a lot more revenue come in. So that's our goal for you. That's what we are setting for you to get out of this conversation. I'm going to introduce our panelists today. If you don't know these two beautiful women, I love them so much. Judith Richey is a spiritual healer, a force for transformation. And then Julia May Hunt is a social media and brand photographer with a side of woo. So all of you that are more in the spiritual world, this conversation will probably be a little bit more multifaceted with more interpretations in all sorts of other ways. If you're joining us live, I encourage you to ask questions. If you want us to dive into some more areas a little bit more, let us know. We're here for all of our members so that they can go ahead and create a beautiful life filled with great opportunity, lots of money in your pocket, and of course, live happy and harmoniously as well. We don't want you stressed out. That whole side hustle and the full hustle and grind until you collapse is out the window. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with Judith Richey. Judith, when we talk about self-love and that connection to generating more revenue, do you have a personal story to share on your connection between self-love and generating more revenue? Or do you have a story about somebody else that you saw kind of go through that process? And my intention in asking that question is, I truly believe that as we share stories, whether it's our own or of other people, we all learn from those kind of like those journeys. What's a story that you can share with us?
That's a great question. And yes, I've got a story to share with y'all. In fact, I've been doing a whole series all month on my Instagram about self-love and self-care and why it is so vitally important. So I'm right here all month with you. I was the person who learned to say yes to what everyone else wanted for me in my life instead of what I wanted for me in my life. And as a result of that, I'll just fast forward all the way through life. I was a successful financial advisor who really was doing well and absolutely hated what I was doing. And because it was not something that I consciously was tapping into what my purpose was for me in this life, but I was doing this to please someone else and what they thought I should be doing. I circumvented listening to my inner wisdom. I circumvented listening to what I needed to be doing for me and did this 100% to please someone else. I crashed and burned as a result of that. And even though I was successful and I won trips and I won awards and I made good money, the price that I paid for what I was going through was not worth it. I could still be there today and I'd be probably one of the most miserable human beings you'd ever know in your entire life. So for me, the reward of stepping back away from that and moving into a place of self-love and self-care, of really going inside and figuring out what it was that my purpose was here in this life and what it was that my gifts are that I'm to bring to the world, made so much difference. And as I tapped into that and went through my healing process, my vibration started changing. So the frequency of what I sent out to people started changing. So I started interacting with people on a completely different level. And my business has grown 100% through word of mouth referrals because I went into that place of self-love and really brought my authentic self forward to the world.
So I'm taking notes, and I love that you mentioned, because I think a lot of women, including myself, experience this, where we've said yes to every single opportunity because that's what other people wanted. And we disconnected ourselves from that decision making and we put others first, which I think so many of us do without
Yes.
realizing that it is anti-self-love when we get into that space where we're putting other people's needs before ours. Of course, I'm not saying, aging parents, newborns, obviously, yes, that those situations, they may have to come first at times. But I'm saying in the day to day, I think a lot of women overcommit, say yes to things that they don't necessarily feel connected to, but we do so. And that is a form of not loving yourself. When you do love yourself, you get to what you're saying. You go through that process of falling in love with yourself and therefore attracting more opportunity because you're a happier person, you're vibing higher, as they say, and that will bring in more opportunities to you. So I love that you mentioned that. Stacey Lucis, another one of our FemCity Global members, she mentioned that last week, that sometimes self-love is not just words, it's also the actions that we take.
100%. I agree with that. 100%. Yes.
I had never heard that. Like, that blew my mind when she shared that last week, because again, I could see myself in those stories of taking on things action-wise that definitely were not in the best interest of my personal growth, myself, my self-love, but I never put those two together. I always thought they were words. Self-love had to be words, but they're also actions. So I love that.
Can I just make a quick little comment about that? It was really interesting because when I left being a financial advisor, before I had gone through my healing process, I felt like I had done that from a place of weakness and failure. And then I met a coach who said, "What gave you the strength and courage to stand up for yourself?" Oh, that reframe changed my life. So when a lot of times we think we're doing something because everybody else around us doesn't agree, but we know that's the right thing for us, it does take strength and courage to do that for us in that place of self-love.
Oof, that was really good too. Really good. All right, let me see. There's a comment that came through. Delilah is Delilah is our FemCity Bronzeville, Texas president. Great insight. Thank you. Thanks, Delilah, for joining us. All right, let's go to Julia May. Same question to you, Julia May, regarding self-love and the journey into connecting it with more revenue.
So for me, especially in the beginning, I was realizing that if I didn't love myself, it was going to be hard to have confidence. And it's hard to sell yourself when you don't have confidence and you don't love yourself. And so sometimes I would make sales because I was talking about what I love to do. So sometimes if I didn't know I was making a sale, I could talk about how much I loved what I was going to do and all this exciting stuff. But if I knew I was on the spot and trying to make a sale, or I knew I was in an actual sales meeting, it was really hard to be able to make the sale. And so I just was like, well, what am I going to do here? How am I going to sell myself? I gotta figure out how to make some forward progress. And so I would just start meditating, and I would start before I had a meeting, just 5 minutes of spending some time to let go of all of the noise and things I would say to myself that were not positive. And then just connect to love. If I took the word self-love out of it at first, I would just connect to love, what I loved about what I was doing. And then that just gave me just enough wiggle room to be able to start making sales and start moving forward with fulfilling my dreams. And then as I became more and more successful, then I also was kind of working backwards and learning to love myself as I went and believe in myself and have that confidence. So it's been a process. It's kind of like I had to stair step my way into loving myself, and that's how I did it.
I love your honesty on that, Julia, because I was in the same boat as well. Like, I had to babysit my way in. First, when I heard self-love, I thought it was narcissistic. Like, I thought, like, oh, if I love myself, like, what does that say about me? Like, that's like unhealthy to love yourself. I had to reframe it, like you were saying, and just remove the word self and just always coming from a place of love. And then eventually, it's kind of like that choo-choo. It started getting easier. And I also do the same thing. Like, I meditate before I have any kind of important meeting or a connection, or before I go into a networking event. I just want to make sure I'm like centered and grounded and not carrying the heaviness that I think so many of us pick up. Whether it doesn't matter where you live, there's always heaviness, right? Either watching the news or something on TV or a book that you read or someone says something, like there's always like this kind of circulating that to get grounded in a place of love, so that that's what people feel from you, is a great place to start. I love that, because so many people don't know where to start, including myself. I had no idea where to start, and kept hearing it, right? Self-love. I'm like, like,
that's so selfish.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh my gosh, like, there you are thinking you're the best. And it wasn't about that. It was just like literally just honoring yourself and who you truly are, and just being kind with the actions and the words. So love this conversation. All right. Final advice that you have. Let me make sure. Let me go through my notes really quick. Oh, here's another question: is what are some of the takeaways from your journey that will give tools to other people? Because again, like going back to what Julia was sharing, at the end of the day, people just want to know, like, okay, now I see the connection between self-love and revenue or opportunities, but how do I even get there? Like, where do I even start? I know Judith, Julia, you just kind of touched upon that. Judith, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think that one of the messages that we get is that when we're practicing self-care, it has to be a big deal. We have to block out all this time, and it has to be this, this thing this event that we do. And self-care and self-love can be fit into the little moments of our day, into the little gaps of our day. I'm in a different season in life where my husband and I are empty nesters, and I do have a completely different schedule. So I have a whole morning routine that I do in my terms of my self-care. And there are also times when I have a super busy day, and like you, Violet, I'm going into a meeting and I just take a minute and I just get aligned back in there. There's so many ways we can do self-care. There's recreational self-care. So when you're out playing, well, you're taking care of yourself. When you're out, if you're playing pickleball, or you're throwing bags, or, walking around the park, that's a type of self-care. We have emotional self-care. We have physical self-care. If you're feeding yourself nourishing food and taking care of yourself that way, that's a physical self-care. There's so many different ways we're already taking care of ourselves. And I'd love to offer to you that just reframe that and just take the moment to appreciate, oh, this is something I'm doing because I love myself. And when I go spend time with my girlfriends, it's because I love myself and I love my girlfriends, and I'm becoming refreshed and rejuvenated by doing that. So I want to dispel the myth that self-care has to be a big deal every day. You have to put it on the calendar and you have to go somewhere to do it. None of that. You're doing self-care all day long. So take credit for that already.
I love that. You're absolutely right. People will think, I mean, myself included. I remember as a new mom, when we had Christoph, I felt really guilty of going to the gym. Like, as a former personal trainer and, Pilates instructor and Pilates business owner, I felt really guilty going to the gym. I felt like the worst mom ever. And then, oh my gosh, if friends asked me to go out to dinner and I had to hire a babysitter to do that, like, I felt like the worst person ever. And I don't know where I picked up that narrative. I don't know what made me feel like that. I don't know if it was someone told me something, or I read something, or I have no idea. I know I'm not alone in that. So many new moms specifically feel the same way. But it took me a while to realize, like, just going to the gym does not make me a selfish, horrible person. It just means that I'm getting away, and I'll be a better mom or a better human to those around me. Or going out with my girlfriends and giggling makes me a better human. And that's a form of self-love. But gosh, my self-love story was a total mess for sure. Julia May, anything you want to add about takeaways from your own journey?
For me, it was also about learning to listen to my intuition and loving myself to listen to that intuition. And that helps you with those opportunities that you are supposed to say yes to when you're able to listen to that. So that was quite a process too, to listen to that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And again, we get caught in the noise. And even honestly, like, when the pandemic happened, I got so good at meditating throughout the day. And then that kind of covered me through the year and a half of the first batch of it. And I have to say, like, the last year, I've been so in the throes of putting out fires that I lost my way. Like, I lost that routine, that ritual of, like, just meditating throughout the day. And that's something that I've been trying to work on again as 2023 started, trying to get into that place of just doing it throughout the day, to make sure that I'm the best human I can be, not only for myself, but for other people too. All right, Judith, where can femmes find you to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
So I'm very active on Instagram right now. So it's Judith.Force for Transformation. I'm going through an entire brand refresh, so I'm not going to send you to my website, but, and I also do a weekly newsletter called Wisdom Wednesday. So if you'd like to sign up for that, let me know and I'll get you on my list. And then I also do an Instagram Live every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Central. And Julia, I'd love to have you on there as a guest. It's called Embrace Hope. And what I do is I talk to powerful, successful women who've gone through difficult times in their life, who've had to tap into that self-care and that self-love to be able to come out on the other side and really have found hope in the middle of their situation.
I love that. I love there's so much more love that came through. These are all eye-opening comments for me. I'm definitely going to try to be nicer to myself starting now. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Delilah, for sharing that. That makes us
Before you go on, may I say something? Because I'm really hearing that I need to talk about this word. 2 words, and they're both A words, authenticity and alignment. And, loving ourselves is when we allow ourselves to become aligned with that love. And then we authentically present ourselves to the world. And we do raise that vibration. We do have that frequency that goes out. And sorry, Violet, I just heard that I really needed to say that.
That is all good. May and I are very appreciative of that. So yeah, how dare you? How dare you add more value to this? What do you think you are adding more value and helping us more? Okay.
I'm a force for transformation. That's who I am.
Exactly right. Julia May, final advice, and how can femmes find you to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
Well, just remember just to connect to that love. That's the easiest thing to do. Just let everything else go and fill your heart full of love, and it'll start happening for you just naturally.
Yeah.
And then you can find me on Instagram. That's the easiest place, so Julia May Hunt. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and a little bit on TikTok. But the easiest place to find me is on Instagram. And I do all kinds of stuff in there, so you just follow along.
And she has a really cute video where she wiggles her Tukey, which I just told her about. It's just so much fun. So much fun to see someone wiggle her Tukey, because then you're like, I'm going to wiggle my Tukey too. And I feeling like I should mention, so many years ago, another FemCity Global member, Lee Tran, mentioned that, I think we were talking about self-love, and she mentioned that she did a great activity in which she wrote a love note to herself, forgiving herself for not loving herself in the past. And I just feel like that's a really good tip to share. Again, I know I've said it a couple of times, but it's a really good exercise to do. If you are holding on to something that made you not love yourself as much, maybe take some time to just write a love note from yourself today to that person that you were when things happened, to forgive yourself and let that go. That's a really great exercise too. It's just like a personal love note, just releasing all that. Because sometimes we carry that heaviness and we feel like, how dare I live a better life, or how dare I release that, or I'm still going to hold that, punish myself. And then I'm going to quote another FemCity Global member, Sarah Sparks, who says, if you ask yourself, are you done suffering? That's another great question that comes through. Are you done suffering? And often we are done suffering. We've punished ourselves enough. It's time to move on and love ourselves. So anywho, all right, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. And again, for those that are watching the replay, you can always continue the conversation with us. You can reach out to Julia May and Judith as well. Of course, me too. You can reach out to any of us, and we want to hear your success stories. We want to hear how these tips helped you. So thank you so much for joining us. And to learn more about FemCity, head over to femcity.com. We've got a great free 30-day trial membership ready for you. Mwah! Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.